Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome to This Week in Wrestling History. I am Ryan.
And I'm Jacob.
So basically, we're here with a little podcast to go over some wrestling history. We kind of figure there's plenty of wrestling podcasts out there to choose from right now with going over current events between professionals and even some more skilled amateurs than us. So we wanted to take a little bit of a look back.
Yeah, I mean, compared to those people who are doing it and going to be doing it much better than we are, you don't need to listen to us recap stuff that's currently happening. We feel like it would be a lot more fun to look back and see the stuff that people probably don't remember.
Yeah, I figure take a little of a look back at kind of the quote-unquote golden age of wrestling at the late 80s, early 90s, the kind of
not-so-golden age of the 2000s.
The not-so-golden ages of the early 90s WWE, of the career wrestlers where you have your plumbers and your garbage men wrestling. So that's our plan for this podcast. Hopefully we'll be able to get some of our friends on here every once in a while, do some different things. But plan is week to week, kind of just recap what happened this week in the past. And
let's preface it by saying that we're not going to be doing just WWE stuff.
No.
That's going to be a majority because that's, more mainstream in the
and honestly,
the
it's
80s
what we have
and 90s.
access to. We have access to the network and some other stuff, but on the network, you're getting classic WCW, classic WWF, some ECW.
Yep. So we'll look at New Japan, we'll look at RoH, some other indie stuff, but it's not going to be the mainstay. It's going to be some of the stuff that people are going to remember a lot more.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be taking a look at some indie stuff to see kind of how that factored into the bigger picture of the past.
And probably end up looking at stuff that, even though it was kind of recent, still happened a while ago. Like, I don't know, maybe Kenny Omega winning the New Japan IWGP belt next year.
We're probably not going to be covering too much of what happened last week, what happened last month on a given pay-per-view. Especially because we're this week in wrestling history, so we'd have to cover it on the Sunday after it happened.
Right.
So probably not going to be doing too much of that unless something super crazy major happens. We might touch on it, but mostly be focused on what happened in the past.
Yep. So,
all right.
On that note,
Without any further ado, let's get into it.
August 3rd, 1997.
all right. So August 3rd, 1997, we have SummerSlam 97, which ironically is what they were calling it for the first 10 minutes of the pay-per-view. And then after that, it was just SummerSlam.
Calling it by the date.
Yep.
First. All right.
Yep.
As you do.
So first match was actually Triple H versus Mankind. And this was back when he was doing the Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick. Came out with the long robe and did the little curtsy bow thing
So
at the beginning.
probably like last Hunter pre-DX.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're right before the cusp of DX.
And just before he got the mutton chops and everything.
Before he turned into Lemmy.
Yep. And he was with China at that point. She was his special enforcer and
right, because he had gone
bodyguard.
through like the series of models where
Mhm.
Sable came from, and
Yep.
Mark Marrow got involved, and then he's gone from the company. I'm pretty sure.
He was still there for a short time, but it was towards the end of his run at this point. He wasn't on the card at all.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Triple H versus Mankind in a cage match. The biggest takeaway I took of this was Mankind won, but there was a nasty, nasty door shot where Hunter goes to poke his head out of the door, Mankind goes to poke his head out of the door, and China comes up and slams the door. And this is that old blue cage.
Good old blue cage, yep.
With
bars.
the super thick bars, cracks Mankind on the skull, and all you heard was a massive thud. It was one of the worst things that I had ever heard.
That's sadly kind of Mick Foley's gimmick was the unprotected headshot. So
Yeah, that was not great. Then halfway through this, he, at the end, after everything happens, he gets up to go leave, but turns into Dude Love as he's leaving, and they play his music as he walks out. Play Dude Love's music as he walks out.
All right.
While he's still dressed up as Mankind.
3 Faces of Foley.
Yeah. Next match was Goldust versus Brian Pillman, where the stipulation was if Goldust won, Brian Pillman had to wear a dress the next night on Raw.
All right, it's the late 90s, sure.
Goldust won. So Goldust throws the mannequin that has the dress on it back into the ring. And Pillman proceeds to go berserk and breaks the mannequin and rips the dress up and throws it into the front row.
All right, as you do.
Nothing really special out of that. There wasn't any crazy spots or anything.
This was after Pillman in Austin? It had to have been, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Loose Cannon is pretty much wrapping up his run fairly shortly?
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
After that, we have a little kind of video for Tiger Ali Singh. He had wrestled prior to this, but nothing broadcasted. So they're like, oh, this is the highly touted Tiger Ali Singh. He should debut soon. But
seems like he was the questionable run there. Like, I remember these video packages. I remember him being hyped up. He's the son of Tiger Jeet Singh. Big Indian market push. Yep. But I don't ever recall anything coming from this whole thing.
He won the Saudi Arabian Cup, which was like a tournament that they had at one point.
Right.
And that was the only thing that he did.
All right. So, yeah, he was another one of these hyped guys that just never really materialized.
Nothing.
All right.
And Jerry Lawler decides to make fun of his turban and says, wow, what a stupid hat.
No, cultural sensitivity. It's what the late 90s were known for.
Yay, 90s. So after that, we had the Legion of Doom versus the Godwins, which sounds like it should have been straight out of 1992.
Right. I remember these guys showed up from WCW originally. So the Godwins. There were Tex Schlesinger and Shanghai Pierce there.
Yep.
Then they picked up the awful Godwin monikers. Legion of Doom broke the main guy's neck. How long before this match?
9 months.
9 months. So put the guy on the shelf for 9 months. They come back, and he never really materialized of anything, right?
Didn't do much of anything. The other one, to be honest, I can't remember which one's which.
So Henry O. Godwin was the older, Mark Canterbury. He was the older of the two. He's the one that got his neck broke. The other one was Phineas O. Godwin. I don't remember his name, but he becomes Midian.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
The Legion of Doom ends up winning. Nothing of note. There was, the normal Doomsday device, but that was...
Yeah.
There wasn't
standard
anything.
Legion of Doom thing. So this had to be shortly before they got into the real dark days of Legion of Doom with Draws and...
Yep.
Addicted Hawk and that whole awfulness.
This was still when, aside from Stone Cold, the Legion of Doom got the biggest pop of the night.
Well,
later on.
Definitely a carryover from the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
97, they're still going.
Even later on, Undertaker comes out, and he didn't get as big a pop as Legion of Doom did.
People like this face paint.
Yeah, right? So Legion of Doom ended up winning. Randomly, they showed Captain Lou Albano ringside and had him pointing and making fun of the Godwins.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got nothing on that.
Wasn't anything spectacular, but...
Captain Lou gets a payday. Got it.
So then, after that, there was no match immediately after this. They had a contest for... Whoever wins said contest wins $1 million. And it was a big panel that they had with Post-it notes all over it in the form of the old yellow WWF logo that had 50 keys behind each Post-it note. Whoever got the correct key and opened up the casket won the money that was in said casket.
Was it wrestlers or was it just...
Nope, it was fans.
Random?
Fans. So they had two fans... 12-year-old kid and this other guy who they flew to SummerSlam to actually do this. And then they called 2 other people.
The late 90s were a weird time for contests.
Yeah.
That's all. Well, I remember the original In Your House gave away a house.
Yep.
And WWE in their contests need to stop, because then eventually they had the Raw $1 million giveaway
Yes.
where they were calling people that could not give a damn less.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened with this. They had to call people. 2 people didn't pick up. Even though afterwards they called 2 more people, they picked up, didn't get it right. Nobody actually won the $1 million for this. However, you got a $5,000 U.S. savings bond, even if you picked the wrong key.
Sure. So so there's a ton of Post-it notes, and behind each Post-it,
50 Post-it notes.
50 Post-it notes. Behind each Post-it note was 50 keys.
Was 1 key.
Oh, it was okay. I thought there was okay. So you had a 1 in 50 shot. Okay.
So all these people are picking all these high numbers and everything.
All right.
They get, I think it was Bruce Pritchard came out to actually announce the winning key.
Was it Bruce Pritchard or Brother Love?
It was Bruce Pritchard.
Okay.
And it was the number 3.
Right. So okay. Awesome. Just contest time filler.
Yeah, exactly. So the next match after that was for the European title.
A very coveted belt.
I'm sensing your sarcasm for that one.
Well, I hope so.
British Bulldog versus Ken Shamrock.
The guy the belt was made for.
Yep.
Versus the crazy guy at the time.
So the stipulation was if Bulldog lost the match, he would eat a can of dog food.
So you're not just going to lose your belt, you're going to have to eat some dog food too. All right.
Yes.
Go on.
This was not a good match. It was very, very bad, and it did not make Bulldog look good by any means.
I think this was still kind of solidly in Bulldog's unfortunate time of substance abuse, and I'm pretty sure it was also pretty early in Shamrock's career.
So he didn't do much.
He was kind of green, and I mean he came from the UFC as a legitimate fighter.
Couldn't, and Vince
but he wasn't
McMahon
a worker.
Yeah, and Vince McMahon actually notes that Shamrock has a hard time adapting to the WWF style.
Makes sense. In UFC, it's all about conserving and doing the least amount you need to do to win. WWE, it's
over the top,
way over the top. So
yep,
not exactly the most natural fit. No, makes sense.
So at one point, Shamrock flops on a DDT real hard. Like Bulldog is still standing up when Shamrock goes down.
Oops.
Bulldog cut Shamrock hard style right across the bridge of his nose. Ended up being a DQ after Shamrock took the can of dog food and smashed Bulldog with it. So Bulldog keeps his title.
And this was during Ken Shamrock's, so they had him as kind of the guy that couldn't be controlled. But the problem was they brought him in as the referee for the Bret Hart Stone Cold Steve Austin WrestleMania match the year before. So was it even the year before or just a couple months before? Was it this year's Mania?
It was 97's Mania. Yeah.
All right. So a couple months before. And suddenly this guy's flipping out. So well-vetted referee by the WWF.
Right.
Good.
Shamrock ended up going ballistic after the match.
Gets
chokes out Bulldog. And then slaps a belly to belly on every single referee and producer who comes out. Poor Pat Patterson.
Of course, got to get the Stooges going.
Yep. So the next match was Los Boricuas versus the Disciples of Apocalypse.
Yay, gang warfare era.
I will tell you right now, it started off so bad, I did not watch it.
Probably for the best.
The only thing that came out of this was Chains was actually the fake Undertaker, Brian Lee.
Yep.
Savio Vega was on the Los Boricuas, but what does that really matter at this point?
Yeah. The one faction that absolutely did nothing. Oh, no, DOA didn't do anything either. The Nation did something.
Yeah.
The Nation did all sorts of somethings, and they're not the ones involved.
The Nation actually came out afterwards and went to fight DOA because Los Boricuas left.
Fair enough. Was this Rock Nation or just solidly Farouk?
So it was just as Rock was joining.
Okay, so
he wasn't actually even there.
Oh.
So he had just popped on during Raw once or twice, but he was still he was still being called Rocky Maivia.
Still the blue chipper?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So he had been kind of paired with them a couple of times, but nothing crazy.
On the plus side, at least it got Farouk away from that awful modern age gladiator gimmick or whatever they had him doing. So
yeah,
at least it did that. Ron Simmons definitely deserved better than that.
All right. So after that, we had Stone Cold versus Owen Hart for the IC belt.
Unfortunate match.
Yeah. So this was actually the match where Austin took the bad pile driver.
Where, Owen did the sit-out tombstone of...
Yes.
Of every way to deliver a pile driver, I don't know why you do it that way.
No, that would not have been the way I would have wanted to take that. That's... If you see anybody do a pile driver, a tombstone, actually any pile driver now, there's hardly ever a sit-out to it.
Yeah.
It's almost always a tombstone.
Yeah. It's either a tombstone so the guy delivering it hits his knees first, or if it is still like the straight up pile driver, like Suzuki in New Japan, of all places, in the G1 just this past weekend, fell backwards on his ass. So the guy's not impacting at all.
Yep.
So, of all guys doing it, Minoru Suzuki being the safest person to do the move. If he can get it right, anyone should be able to get it right. And,
So Austin ends up, as we end up knowing, becoming partially paralyzed for a little bit after the actual pile driver.
A scary amount of time. I'm sure watching it back, it wasn't that bad.
Oh no, it was long.
Oh.
It was a solid 5 minutes that Owen Hart is walking around the ring yelling at the crowd, and the ref is trying to talk to Austin. Oh. And then out of nowhere, Austin kind of slinks up with his arms.
The awful little schoolboy roll-up thing. Yeah.
And Owen had to sell it really well.
Which, thankfully, of all people to be able to do that,
right?
He's the right guy for that spot, but
yeah.
Ugh.
And it took Austin almost 5 minutes just to get out of the ring and walk to the back.
And I mean, really says something that he had another 6 years on his career, but
right.
Theoretically should have been way more than that.
Oh, for all intents and purposes, if this didn't happen, I would assume Stone Cold would probably still be wrestling, or he would have retired shortly after Shawn Michaels did.
Right. He would have had at least another solid 2 to 5 years.
Yeah. So probably 2010 if this hadn't happened.
Sure.
So then we had our main event, which was Undertaker, who was the WWF champion at the time.
All right.
And Bret Hart, who is in the midst of his Canada's amazing, I'm the evil Canadian kind of thing.
Right. Whenever they're in Canada, and they seem to be popping into Canada quite a bit during this time, getting super face reactions, super over, super everyone behind him. I stand corrected. Just in the U.S. was he a heel. Everywhere else in the world,
he was the babyface.
Biggest babyface ever.
This was in Pittsburgh.
Ugh.
Which is normally, as we know, a dead crowd.
Yep.
Disgusting amount of heat for Bret Hart.
And Pittsburgh, very American city.
Uh-huh. So he comes out with the Canadian flag and all that, and
just
people
nuclear heat.
Oh yeah, almost Iron Sheik level nuclear heat. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Shawn Michaels was actually the referee for this.
Shawn, guest ref.
Supposedly being the
impartial, quote unquote,
impartial, unbiased referee. So I timed Undertaker's entrance from the moment his music started to the moment where he actually took his jacket off in the ring. Took him 5 minutes straight.
Unpopular opinion, that was the worst part about old school Undertaker.
That's why
there was a lot of pageantry, and I don't know. I guess I was just never bought into it. It always just took forever. It took longer than the match sometimes. I never felt the 5 minute entrance.
Yeah.
And especially because He's walking slowly to the ring.
Yep.
He's still walking slowly to the ring. He's walking slowly up the steps. Like,
Yep.
because
And
that at the big pay-per-view, like the big four, it was usually a little bit better, like the Druids and stuff.
right, where it's a little bit more of a show kind
Sure.
of thing.
But like,
But
dude,
Every Monday night when he had a match.
well, it's usually like even at Raw, it wasn't too bad. But like the in your houses, like the little in between pay-per-views, super long, just smoke.
Yep.
Ugh. Anyway,
This was also when he had the teardrop under his right eye. Oh yeah, he had a black teardrop under his right eye for
Goth
this.
Taker. All
Yeah.
right.
Lots of no sells between the two of them, which was kind of funny to watch. Two of arguably the best workers of the time, and they're no selling like no tomorrow.
Sure.
Taker
Yeah.
takes a clothesline and immediately stands back up and turns around and faces Brett.
So it's like a New Japan match almost.
Yes.
Okay, so
Taker hits a big boot. Brett immediately stands back up and stares at Taker again.
Brett and Taker going strong style. Nice.
Yes.
All right, I can feel that.
So the match ended up ending with Bret Hart winning the title.
Via shenanigans,
Very much so.
late
So,
90s, of course, shenanigans.
Everything ended in shenanigans in the 90s. So Hart takes a chair, smashes Taker with it, which Taker no sells.
Why not?
Straight to the head chair shot.
Sure,
Go figure.
as you do.
Then Taker bumps Brett into Shawn. Shawn then falls out of the ring.
Shawn being in referee mode, of course, yes.
Yep. Takes another 4 minutes to get back into the ring.
Those damn referee shirts, they're the worst things you could ever put on.
So then Shawn gets back into the ring as Brett's going for another chair shot. And Shawn stops Brett, takes the chair from him and starts yelling at him like, "What did you do with this already? Blah, blah, blah."
How could you? What did you do? I'm a referee. I can't put one and one together.
Common sense goes out the window when you put on the stripes.
As it does, yes.
So Brett spits on Shawn. And this is a massive loogie, too. It was pretty
Brett
disgusting.
was pretty great at spitting, as his Survivor Series would go on to show.
Yeah. So then Shawn goes to swing the chair at Brett, and Taker takes another direct to the head chair shot. So then to show that he's unbiased, because if he shows any bias, they claimed that Shawn would get fired during the match.
Gotcha.
He counts the 1, 2, 3, and Brett wins. Picks up his Canadian flag and marches to the back.
Woohoo.
Shawn runs to the back first. Undertaker gets pissed and runs after Shawn, and Bret Hart's getting bottles and everything thrown at him as he's waving the Canadian flag.
All right. So
That's it for SummerSlam 97.
So going into this, there was kayfabe beef between Shawn and Taker from the Royal Rumble casket match.
Yes.
There has to have been, yeah.
Yep.
There was
There was heat between Bret and Shawn.
Bret and Shawn. Obviously, they were doing their thing.
There was heat between Bret and
Taker just over the belt,
and also Bret and Vince at this time.
right? Because this was near. This was when Vince was having to break it to Bret that, hey, WCW's bankrupting me. I
Yep.
can't afford to pay you this giant contract you just signed. So
Yep.
why don't you go negotiate with WCW and I'll let you out of your contract?
Yep.
Yeah, and so we're in August, and then come November of this year,
We'll talk a little bit more about that.
obviously come November, the screw job. All right. So that is Survivor Series 1990. No, I'm sorry. That's SummerSlam 1997.
Good try.
Almost
Good
got it.
try.
All right.
August 1st, 2001.
All right. Up next, we have our OVW TV taping from August 1st, 2001. So, I'll be right up front. Haven't watched this. Just going to be a quick little recap. Just some interesting stuff here I wanted to kind of touch on. Just 5 little quick matches on a TV card for it. Our first match had what became a really interesting tag team that I would not have thought these two paired up would be a normal tag team, but They ended up winning the OVW tag titles 3 times. So it was a regular team. It wasn't just 2 random guys. So we have Chris Michaels and Sean Casey. No idea who these guys are.
Nope.
Never heard of them before.
Nope.
Probably will never hear of them again. Versus Bobby Eaton, beautiful Bobby, and
Random.
Randy Orton.
Out of all the people.
Right. So you have veteran Bobby Eaton and complete rookie Randy Orton as a 3-time tag champs of OVW.
Wonder if this was a favor to Daddy Cowboy Bob.
Possibly. Well, speaking of daddies, our next match on the card was David Flair versus Jason Lee. Yeah, David Flair had his run in mid-90s WCW when Dad was booking. David Flair, I'm sure he's a lovely person. No business being in the ring.
Yeah, he's no Charlotte.
No. He was not the guy in that family that got the good inheritance on that one. Next match up, Brock Lesnar versus Brian Keck.
Who?
Exactly. Brock Lesnar, some people have heard of these days.
Yeah, you could say that.
Right. So far, Randy Orton would go on within the next year, be on the main card. David Flair would be released. Bobby Eaton would never main card again in the 2000s, as far as I know, at least not in WWF. Brock Lesnar would make his main card appearance in 2002. Next match was Leviathan versus Mr. Black. Mr. Black, better known as Mr. Black. Yeah, I don't know who he is. Leviathan, better known as Dave Batista.
You fooled me with that one. I thought you were going somewhere.
Yeah, no. Mr. Black is just... I got nothing. But no, Dave Batista, originally Leviathan down in OVW, obviously would go places. Again, he would be on the main card within a year.
In and outside of the company.
Yes. Definitely a prolific career on him. Guy is much older than I thought. So he got his start around the 2000s. He was born in the 60s.
Yeah,
so,
he was...
Yeah, 30s.
Yeah, I want to say when I listened to an interview, he said that he was one of the oldest that OVW had while they were down there.
Definitely. I mean, he kind of took the DDP route on things.
Which, hey, good for him.
Yeah.
Look where he is now.
Made it work. So more power to him. All right. Our main event was a 4v4 tag match. And I'm going to do my best to explain who these people were, but it's all over the board here. All right. So on our winning team, we had DiMaggio, Mark Henry, Nick Dinsmore, and Trailer Park Trash. All right, there's a lot to unpack here. Trailer Park Trash was apparently just Trailer Park Trash. Never heard of this guy before. Never heard of him since. Mark Henry. Obviously. So this must have been after his Nation run.
Yes.
The whole Nation thing is over and done with. Before the World's Strongest Man.
Yep.
Possibly before Sexual Chocolate. Possibly after.
2001 would have been after.
After Sexual Chocolate. Okay,
yes.
So this is his repackaging time between Sexual Chocolate and World's Strongest Man.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Nick Dinsmore went on to become Eugene. So he was still down there for a couple of years after this. And then DiMaggio was better known as Danny Basham of the Basham Brothers. I guess that's an accomplishment. You're known on the main card for something. All right. Their opponents were Johnny Spade, Mike Hard, Sly Scraper. It's 2001.
Names.
I thought we were done with these kinds of names.
Oh, God.
And The Machine. All right. Johnny Spade, no idea.
Nope.
Mike Hard was better known, quote unquote, better known as Jack Dupp of the infamous Dupps. I guess these guys were mid-carders around like the late 90s and into the 2000s. I'm going to call them the poor man's Dudley Boys because it seems like there was a number of them. They had awful pun names and...
Jacked up.
Jack and Bo.
Good grief.
Yeah, they had a brief... They were on some Shotgun Saturday Night episodes, some Sunday Night Heats. That's about the best they had.
What
All
a
right.
career.
Next up, we had Sly Scraper. This guy would actually go on to hit the main card, better known as Sylvester Turkey.
Okay.
So legit
Okay.
fighter there. Not that he really ever became much, but had a name, I suppose. And finally, we had the Machine, who was the other Basham, Doug Basham. So,
I mean, out of any of them, you have Mark Henry, but then you also have the Bashams who go on to 2-time tag champs.
really? Were they?
At least one.
What a sad day in tag team history that must have been.
At least one, because that was when they were part of JBL's cabinet with Orlando Jordan.
I'll be honest, I was not watching during that time, so
Was after JBL took the belt off of Eddie.
Ugh.
Eddie didn't win the belt or even come close to getting the belt for a little while after that.
All right, so dark days of wrestling.
Yeah.
Some of these folks.
We'll hit that at some
about to
point,
say,
I'm sure.
Eugene, I guess, was something for a couple of years in there.
He had TV time.
He certainly did, but what a tough role that had to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, guy made the best of it. So,
Pretty decent trainer from what I hear, though.
all right. So, all right, that's your OVW TV taping from 2001.
August 2nd, 1998.
All right, next up we have ECW Heatwave 98. So this was the 5th Heatwave event, which I was actually shocked by. So I didn't know ECW had been running that many big cards, honestly.
They had 5 of those?
Yeah. So I don't know if it started, honestly, back when it was still Eastern Championship Wrestling and survived into the Extreme, but one way or another, this was their 5th Heatwave event. It was their first real main crossover event with FMW. They had a few...
Okay.
They had
Now
they
I
had
remember
guys
this one.
from FMW show up every once in a while, but this was like their first big one, I'm going to say.
And for those who don't know, FMW?
Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. So when you hear about people talk about Mick Foley and Terry Funk having the death matches and pretty much death matches in general, they're talking about FMW. These are the people that had exploding barbed wire fence matches. They had
Barbed wire rope matches before ECW picked it up.
Oh yeah. Basically everything ECW was, FMW was that times 20. They had barbed wire spider web matches where it was just basically a board outside of no ropes on the ring, boards on the outside of the ring, just with barbed wire crisscross suspended above it.
Wasn't FMW the ones who also pioneered the fluorescent light bulb? Or I believe they had at least 1 or 2 of those before CZW picked up on it and ran with it.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much anything quote unquote hardcore was FMW.
Yeah.
All right. So first match of our night was Jerry Lynn versus Just Incredible, and Just Incredible had like a 17-person entourage at this point. Or literally 3, if not 4 people. I feel like I'm missing someone when I say 3. But it was Chastity, Nicole Bass, Jason, maybe just those 3. So just 4 people on his entourage total.
Huh.
So this was the conclusion of their best of 7 series. That was their gimmick, was just these guys have fought in 7 matches over the course of the summer, and this was the tiebreaker, I guess. Go figure, a best of 7 series went to the 7th match.
Shocking.
Overall, pretty decent match, but it really highlighted some of my issues with the ECW style of quote-unquote no real rules.
Yeah.
So at first, midway during the match, Credible's entourage was clearly wanting to jump Jerry Lynn when he got chucked outside of the ring, but they were waiting until Justin distracted the ref. It's ECW.
Just do it.
Yeah, there's no DQ.
Right.
Later in the match, they just jump in the ring and start basically making into a 4-on-1, and the ref's like, shrugs, really wish you guys would stop this whole thing. It doesn't seem fair. But yeah, so it was just a little odd.
Yeah, especially for those two. Those two are normally pretty good, especially back then. Jerry Lynn was really solid.
Yeah, it was a decent little match. Just Incredible ends up winning with a That's Incredible tombstone off the second rope, which looks pretty decent. So,
yeah.
Like I said, not a bad match. Just is ECW tends to be a bit of a schmoz fest where there's too many people and it starts getting weird and things start breaking down, and that's what everyone loves out of ECW. All right. Next up, we had Chris Candido versus Lance Storm.
Oh boy.
These two guys are great in the ring together.
Yeah.
They know each other very, very well. Their history goes back to Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the early 90s. Very familiar with each other. Candido was dealing with some substance and life issues here at this point in time.
Especially with
Tammy was there
name?
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a decent, solid match. Nothing terribly memorable. Candido wins with the blonde bombshell, aka top rope powerbomb, which is hell of an impressive finisher.
Yeah.
Didn't really see that much, and no one really ever copied that move.
No.
Yeah, it's not a bump most guys are going to take, but Storm and Candido being so familiar, he had no problem with it. All right. After this, we start getting into the real heart of the matches a bit more. Next match up was one that really went down in ECW history, is one of the more notable matches they've ever had. Top 20 match, maybe pushing into the top 10. It was Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome. So
wow.
This is your first real kind of FMW feel of the night.
Yeah.
Mike Awesome had been involved with ECW in the past. Usually he'd show up like once a year, once every other year for 2-3 months, just kind of do a little quick visit and move on. This would be the end of his kind of visit for this year. The next time he comes back is actually when it'd be closer to the end of WCW, but it's when he would actually end up winning the title a couple times and get involved with WCW in a really weird situation, which I'm sure we'll cover down the road a bit. But another match where this felt like a little odd part of the booking to me. So Mike Awesome's finisher is also a top rope power bomb. So
yeah, why would you have those?
We never see it, but yeah, it's just
back to back.
Right. It's just an odd card placement. I don't know why you wouldn't have split those matches up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But so this match had a couple of really disturbing things. The build up to this match had Mike Awesome powerbombing Masato Tanaka from the ring over the top rope to a table on the floor.
Ugh.
And in this match, Masato Tanaka returns the favor, but he doesn't really get Awesome going horizontally over the top rope. He just kind of dumps him over the top rope.
Yeah, because Awesome was a pretty decently sized guy.
Watching ECW, you would think so. Mike Awesome was only about 6'3".
Really?
Mike Awesome's one of these guys where I don't understand why WCW and WWF could never figure him out. He, compared to the ECW roster, he was a giant.
Right.
But,
I guess that's true for the time.
Right. That was the problem, is like he was at the end of that era of quote unquote giants compared to Kevin Nash.
Yeah. This is what, 98?
98.
Yeah. This is when you have Nash, Psycho Sid.
Right. You have even Scott Hall, who's a good 3 inches taller than this guy.
Yeah.
So Scott Hall's a little bit leaner, so no one ever thought he was as big as he really was.
Until he's standing next to Kevin Nash and almost is looking him in the eye.
Right. So Mike Awesome, kind of a wasted talent that never really got his full shaken anywhere. But anyways, finish came when Tanaka just DDT'd Awesome onto a chair, and that was the finish. Honestly, the finish felt a little underwhelming given the build to the match and everything that happened during the match.
From what I remember is that was it was almost rushed at the end. Like it was a good pace match, and then all of a sudden, boom, DDT on the chair.
Yeah, it felt that finish felt a little out of place. Tanaka's finisher is normally either the roaring elbow, the discus elbow, or a diamond dust, which is basically a flipping stunner off the ropes. Basically, he dives over the guy and hits him with a stunner on the way over. So yeah, it was an odd finish, but it was fine. Match was really, really good. The finish just kind of popped up out of nowhere. A little bit odd, but match number 4 was probably my favorite ECW match ever. Probably not by the books the best match ever, but
I can probably guess what this one is.
yeah, RVD and Sabu versus Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki. Shinzaki, known to early wrestling fans as Hakushi in the WWF, was always great in the ring. Never really got a push, but his character was really odd, and he was kind of coming at the end of that gimmick era. So
Yeah.
Only major appearance of Hayabusa ever outside of only major appearance in the U.S. definitely. He was an FMW loyalist. He did not he was offered tryouts in WWE, but he didn't take them.
Yeah.
So
He was one of those guys where if you were to compare him to somebody nowadays, he would essentially be your Tanahashi or of New Japan,
right,
or a John Cena.
Shawn Michaels would be a great comparison of the time. Hayabusa, probably one of my favorites ever. Really kind of brought a different feel to the cruiserweight / light heavyweight division.
Arguably one of the best of those divisions.
Right, because not only was he a high flyer, but he was also, as far as cruiserweights went, a real power guy too. So
he also had those couple of bouts where he was very technical.
Exactly.
And could go the pace with somebody like Dean Malenko.
Right, exactly. He was all around just really amazing. Basically, I'd put him kind of on par with like Muda or Liger. And he was a compatriot of theirs.
Yeah.
Same time era and same active fest. Is just he was super loyal to FMW and never really made a name for himself outside of that too much. So the match itself, kind of went heavy on the weapons, and
Surprise.
exactly, and in typical FMW / ECW style, a lot of the weapons were kind of shrugged off, so it was just kind of a lot of all over the place, a lot of chaos. It was more of a tornado tag match than an actual tag match, I guess I would say. It was for the ECW tag titles that RVD and Sabu held.
And who didn't that? What the hell was that guy's name with the whistle?
Bill Alfonso.
Didn't he get involved at some point?
Oh, yeah. He did your standard chuck a chair at someone so RVD could Van Daminator it into their face.
Yeah.
Did that a couple of times. I'm pretty sure they reversed it once onto him where someone gets thrown the chair, then they go, oh, I don't want the chair actually, and chucks it back in RVD's face, which I'm a big fan of that spot.
Yeah. It's always a good one.
Yeah. Kind of your standard Sabu offense of giant spot, laying on the ground dead for a while, botch a spot, wash, rinse, repeat. Finish was RVD hitting the 5-star frog splash and Sabu hitting the Arabian face buster while both their opponents were on tables. Like I said, overall, great match just for how different it was.
Who took the pin?
I think it was a double pin. I think they basically just put both of them through tables and covered both of them at the same time.
Okay. So this was back during a time where booking wasn't really a crazy thing where you didn't want to keep too many people strong?
No.
Especially visitors from another promotion?
Yeah, you weren't terribly concerned about them looking weak in your promotion. You did business. All right. Next up was the 5th match out of 6. I would kind of call this the main event of the evening. ECW was pretty liberal with their moving the belts around and where they were being featured on the card.
Which is always smart.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have a belt that's showing up on a show every week.
Yeah. So this was during the time where Shane Douglas was the champ, had hurt his arm actually, had a big angle running with, he was ducking Taz because he was hurt and Taz hurt his arm more.
Yep. I remember this.
Taz actually created his own belt, the FTW belt.
One of the ugliest looking belts ever.
Indeed.
It was awful.
Yep. Nice orange belt because basically Shane Douglas was legitimately hurt and they needed something to do with their top tier. This was basically Taz's culmination of the run up to that belt. Shane Douglas was there on commentary, and honestly, he really made the match a lot better being on commentary. He really sold that he was going to be impartial during commentary, and he was right up to the finish when Bigelow lost via Mission, and then he absolutely lost his shit, and it was great because it really highlighted the character of Shane Douglas and him being like that consummate, I'm the best, look at me, I'm like the premier athlete, and then, oh crap, something didn't go right, and he completely breaks down, and it completely, just great heel character from that, and it was a real great add-on to the character like that.
He always played a really good heel back in those initial days.
Yeah, back in the ECW days, he was a great heel.
Yeah.
He was the douchebag. It was great. Like I said, Taz wins via Mission, gets his shot at Shane Douglas whenever Shane's arm gets fixed. All right, then our final match of the evening was Tommy Dreamer, Sandman, and Spike Dudley versus Bubba Ray, Devon, and Big Dick Dudley.
Good grief.
Yeah.
How was this the last match of the night?
So the Dudleys were the biggest damn heels in this company, and
they were up until they left.
The minute they they had nuclear heat on their way out, and so it was basically the heart of ECW versus the biggest heels in ECW. Basically, our heroes walked to the ring with ladders, and that pretty much set the tone for the whole thing.
Oh boy.
It was your standard ECW giant brawl fest involving the people that we would have expected to have on there. It wasn't great. It wasn't awful.
Yeah.
It ended with our heroes winning, and then our heroes got beat down, and then New Jack comes out with his shopping cart full of weapons, and everyone goes home happy and bloody. It was your standard ECW kind of fare for this time. So biggest thing I would note here is that this was really kind of at the very end of your core ECW time. After this, ECW really starts kind of getting picked apart by WCW, by WWE, by their awful TNN deal, honestly.
Yeah.
Business just starts to kind of change for ECW. They hold on for a few more years. It's never quite the same. This isn't the ECW from the ECW arena everyone knew and loved. This was kind of the swan song of that whole thing. Is kind of your within the next year is when more of like the outside, your Mike Awesome start coming in, Masato Tanaka starts showing up more, who great wrestlers, great characters. The ECW crowd loved them. They were just very much not that original core ECW group. So things were changing. Kind of the end of an era. All right. That was ECW Heatwave 98.
August 2nd, 2008.
All right, so we have RoH Death Before Dishonor number 6, August 2nd, 2008. This is more of, when we take a look at these short ones like this, we're just going to kind of do a quick little run through of who was there, what happened, just a
quick little why is this important in wrestling history.
Yeah. So first off, RoH, Indie Darlings playground, pretty much. You'll see most of the WWE, TNA, and even some New Japan people coming out of RoH. Most of them end up going into doing pretty decent careers, such as the first match being Eddie Edwards versus Roderick Strong.
So, main eventer in current day Impact.
Impact champion.
Multi-time Impact champion. Roderick Strong, current
NXT Tag Team champion with the Undisputed Era.
So, decade beforehand, still doing on a card.
Yeah, still moving. Second match, you have Chris Hero versus Delirious. Chris Hero, who better known now as Cassius Ohno.
So, again, moves up somewhere, going places.
You have Brent Albright versus Adam Pearce. I don't know who Albright is, but Adam Pearce is really big in the NWA scene. Multi-time NWA heavyweight champion.
So one of these guys where never made it to one of the bigger organizations, but really got himself a good career in the indies that honestly probably doesn't need to go any bigger if he doesn't. He's probably got a comfortable life.
Oh, for as many times as I've seen him win the NWA title, he did pretty good. This was actually for the NWA title on an RoH show, which is kind of surprising.
Kind of during the floundering years of the NWA where they've been divorced from TNA/Impact.
Yep.
Kind of existed in name only, honestly.
Yep. This was before they started to come back on the upswing where they are now.
Sure.
Next match is a three-way match with Austin Aries going over Jimmy Jacobs and Necro Butcher.
So Necro Butcher, again, another indie darling guy.
Yep.
But Austin Aries had his run on the main card. And, well, I suppose 205 is main-ish, but current Impact champion multiple time.
Yep.
Huge name in the indie. Like, he's got the belt collector gimmick currently.
Yep.
Jimmy Jacobs, current writer for Impact, former writer for WWE.
And performer for Impact.
Performer for Impact. Not
And
terrible. It's more of a managerial role by
Yeah.
choice, even.
yeah, I mean, we've even seen him wrestle at an
Locally in
indie
the
show
IWF.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
No, mind you, I didn't watch any of these except for tag match that's coming up, and I'll tell you which one that is in a minute. But after that, we have, I know I'm going to butcher this, Naomichi Marufuji
Naomichi Marufuji. Yep.
versus Go Shiozaki.
Yep.
Marufuji went over Shiozaki.
I know Marufuji best from, I want to say, Pro Wrestling Noah, where his matches versus Kenta were amazing. Kenta, better known as Hideo Itami.
That's where I could never put a name to him, but that makes more sense.
Those matches were amazing. We should definitely cover them at some point. Especially Itami's run as Kenta was really stellar. Those guys definitely carried that company on their back for a good number of years. Marufuji, I believe now still wrestles, but mostly a trainer for, I'm going to say, All Japan. Don't hold me to that one.
That would make sense. Surprisingly enough, actually, Hideo Itami went back to Pro Wrestling Noah recently.
Oh, that's right. They hit like a one night only type thing,
Yep.
right?
Where WWE sent him and somebody else over there and wrestled guys in Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah.
And he actually went as Kenta.
Nice. So, all right.
This was the match that I actually watched. It was Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, better
Motor City
known.
Machine Guns, yeah.
Yep. And El Generico and Kevin Steen teaming together, better known as Kevin Owens. There might be some relation with Generico and Sami Zayn. I'm not 100% sure.
I've heard that. I've never actually seen it anywhere proven, but
Right. I've never seen them both in the same place, but
sure.
really good match. Really fun match. Steen at this point was pretty much his Kevin Owens gimmick he's doing right now.
Prize fighter type.
Not even prize fighter. He yells and makes fun of the other people as he's wrestling.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of hysterical to watch, especially with Generico, who is talking or speaking Spanish the entire time.
Ole.
And then we have our main event. Mind you, all of this is happening at the Hammerstein Ballroom, which was a pretty decent deal for RoH.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the bigger indie arenas.
Yep. So we have the RoH title being defended by Nigel McGuinness.
Okay.
Who's
so current NXT announcer.
Yep. And 205 Live announcer. And UK, whatever they're doing with that announcer. Brian Danielson.
Who now?
Daniel Bryan.
Oh, right. I thought the name sounded familiar.
Funny play on words there.
Yeah, it's clever.
Tyler Black.
Again, who?
Seth Rollins.
Oh, right. Yep. I've heard of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This was when he still had the yellow in his hair.
Okay.
And I'm gonna butcher this one too, so I'm just gonna say his name that we know him as now, Cesaro.
Gotcha.
I can only imagine the magic and the glory that happened in this match.
Right. So on this one card alone, we basically have the top of both Impact and current WWE rosters
And NXT.
and NXT. So it's a decade earlier, so they maybe weren't quite as refined, but these guys have had. It wasn't like this was their first or second year in the business either.
Right.
These guys had made a name for themselves.
Especially when you have people like, I mean, even Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Sabin, who's a multi-time tag and X Division champ, along with Alex Shelley.
Right. So longtime TNA stars.
Yep.
So definitely clearly a lot of talent has always moved through ROH, usually on their way up. And
It's just surprising to see all of this on one card.
right. And definitely a heavy hitting packed card, given what we know today.
Yeah. All right. So that's Death Before Dishonor number 6, August 2nd of 2008.
All right. So that about wraps it up here for our first episode. Before we go, yes.
First episode in the books. Yay.
All right. Before we go, going to go over a couple birthdays from this week in the business.
So August 1st to the 2nd, we have Devon Dudley, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, El Hijo de Santo, Carl Gotch, Wendy Richter, Sable, Dean Malenko, Sin Cara, Loki, and the Monster of Men, Braun Strowman.
All right. So happy birthday to all those fine folks. All right. So yeah, that's our first episode. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. Can always reach out to us.
Please let us know what you think,
What was good? What was bad? What needs fixing? What should we keep doing?
because I know there's going to be some stuff that we need fixing.
Oh, there's got to be. Our email address is wrestlinghistorypodcast@gmail.com. Any other plugs we need for the first episode?
I mean, if you're friends with us on Facebook, whatever, let us know.
Let us know. Shout out to everyone that helped make this possible, all the people that have given us advice, all the people that have given us bad advice, good advice.
And our wives for letting us actually
Our
do
wives
this.
for not killing us while we went through and watched an extra dozen hours of wrestling this week.
And for spending all the money on this stuff.
Oh, come on. This is lovely equipment that they'll get tons of use out of.
They'll get tons of use out of?
Yes.
Right.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. That's it. We're done. We're history.
Later.